It is time for my June monthly wrap, talking all the books that I read in June. Let's put the monthly stats on the screen in 3, 2, 1, go. So this month I read a total of 12 books comprising of 3 thrillers, 2 mysteries, 2 fantasies, 1 sci-fi, 1 horror, 1 romance, 1 classic, and 1 culinary fiction. To my age groups, I read 5 YA, 7 adults, and 0 middle grade. For my lengths, no tomes this month, but I did read 10 half tomes and 2 novellas, totaling 3,756 pages. To my star ratings, I had 4 5 stars, 3 4 stars, 2 3 stars, and 3 2 stars. So the first book that I read this month was this book, The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. This is a YA fantasy, and I gave this book 2 stars. The basic premise of this book is that we're following a girl whose name is Decca, who lives in a tribe in this fantasy world, and when the girls come of age, their blood is tested to see what colour it runs. If it runs red, no problems. If it runs another colour, however, well, it's time to be executed. Our protagonist, while her blood does not run red, and this is not a spoiler because it happens in the first chapter, while her blood does not run red, she is rescued from this tribe by an elderly woman who's trying to put an army of magical beings together. I did feel rather let down by this book. I ended up giving it 2 stars because I just didn't feel that it kept my interest anywhere near enough. I thought that the premise was fantastic, but just the execution itself and my interest levels just did not match up, and I just don't think that this was the book for me. The next book that I read was this book, Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This is an adult sci-fi, and I gave this book 5 stars, so this was just an amazing read for me. The basic premise of this book is that we are following a man by the name of Jason Dessen, who in chapter 1 has quite an interesting night. He goes home at the end of the night to find out that everything has changed. There is a voice message on his answering machine, but it's his voice but not his message. And where is his wife? Where is his child? And why is the interior of his house looking like it has been decorated? So many changes. What is going on here? I'm going to leave you with that as a premise because anything else would be too much of a spoiler. This book grabbed me from the very first page. I absolutely enjoyed my read with this book. I could not recommend this book highly enough. And I have a spoiler-free review of this book if you would like to check that out as well. The next book that I read was this book, One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. This is an YA thriller, and I also gave this book 5 stars. This book also has a spoiler-free review, so feel free to go and check that out if you would like. The basic premise of this book is that we are following, well, the book starts off with 5 students who enter into a detention in high school. They've been given detention. The reason doesn't matter. What matters is that 5 students enter the detention alive, but only 4 make it out alive. That is because one of them is killed. So we end up having a YA murder mystery going on, and our 4 main suspects were the only other children that were in the room with this child at the same time. Who committed the murder? This book was amazing. I absolutely loved this. I think Karen M. McManus did a wonderful job. It is part of a series, and I cannot wait to get on to book number 2. The next book that I read was Unbelievable, which is book number 4 in the Pretty Little Liars series by Sarah Shepard. This is a YA mystery book, and it is the 4th book in the series, so there's not a lot I can say. What I will tell you is the premise of the series in general is that we are following 4 girls who, one night, 5 girls, 5 best friends in high school, have a sleepover, and the next morning, one of the girls is missing. The 4 remaining girls end up being stalked by an unknown cyber-stalking antagonist known only as A, and they get a ton of text messages that are revealing some lies they've kept hidden, hence the name Pretty Little Liars. This 4th book is the end of Era 1. The reason it is the end of Era 1 is because we do finally work out who A is in this book. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler to say. It took 4 books for us to finally work out who A is. I felt really let down with the way that the reveal went. I just wasn't shocked by the reveal. the reveal was done in a way that there was no jaw-dropping moment. It was just worked out, and it was a very calm reveal. I just didn't appreciate it. I gave this book 4 stars. The next book that I read was this book, Wicked by Sarah Shepherd, which is book number 5 in the Pretty Little Liars series. So I have a goal to read 1 Pretty Little Liars book per month. I missed last month, so Unbelievable made up for that this month, and this is the book I always intended to read in June. So book number 5 opens up era number 2. I thought that this book had a very slow beginning, but that's not really surprising considering we're starting a second era of this series. But the way that it ended had me really excited to get on to the next book. So Sarah Shepherd is just amazing with cliffhangers. So if you love series where every book leaves you on a full-on cliffhanger, you will love the Pretty Little Liars series for that. So I also gave this book 4 stars. The next book that I read was this book, Every Value Break by Peter Swanson. This is an adult thriller, and I gave this book 2 stars. A woman who has just gotten married to her husband, and they've gone on over to an island for their honeymoon. She realizes that someone else on this island is a guy that she cheated with. Then some other things start happening that make her wonder, is this actually a coincidence? I felt that Peter Swanson, for me, failed in the execution. First of all, it took until the halfway mark for this book to get anywhere. But then when we got to the reveal, even that was a letdown. How the reveal played out was very much a letdown too. And I mean, just not exciting at all. There was no thrilling moments for me in this book. I was hoping it would get better, and it just didn't. The next book that I read was this book, Inner Holidays by Christina Lauren. Christina and Lauren are an author duo pair, in case you didn't know, who write adult romance stories. I did not enjoy this book at all. We are following a girl whose family all drive up to a vacation house, and while our protagonist is there, she ends up being placed into a perpetual time loop where the day repeats over and over again. Very much it was a Groundhog Day trope kind of deal, and that's what really appealed me to this book. I don't feel that Christina and Lauren went anywhere near far enough with the Groundhog Day trope. The day does repeat, but it didn't repeat anywhere near as much as I was hoping that it would. I also felt that the character building was not done that well. I felt that it was executed rather poorly, and for the most part, I found the book to be rather boring. The conclusion to the book also completely let me down. It just felt like a really jerky ending. I gave it 2 stars. The next book that I read was this book, Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is an adult horror, and I disappointingly gave this book 3 stars. So we're following a girl whose name is Noemi. Noemi's cousin writes to Noemi's father to let him know that she's not doing well, she's not feeling well, and so he packs up Noemi and sends her on her way to go and see what's going on with the cousin, and it looks like there might be more going on, and Noemi's trying to work out what's going on here. So the first 3 quarters fell extremely flat for me. I felt like next to nothing was going on for a horror. The final quarter of this book was really, really good though. So when I got to the 3-quarter mark, I was convinced I was going to give this book 1 star, but by the time I got to the end, I had to bump it up to 3 stars because the final quarter was done really, really well. The next book that I read was this book, The Woman Outside My Door by Rachel Ryan. This is an adult thriller book, and I gave this book an overwhelming 5 stars. We are following a mother whose name is Georgina. One day, her son tells her that he has seen a woman who wants to be his new grandmother. Her husband ends up convincing her that he's just going through the grieving process. Georgina is starting to suspect that this imaginary friend might not be so imaginary. From the first page through to the end, this was such an exciting journey for me. I just loved the character of Georgina so much. The plot of this book was fast-paced, but done in such an amazing way. The reveal at the end was done so well that I have done a review for this book, spoiler-free and spoiler. in that review, I actually said, this is how a thriller should be written. 5 stars, an overwhelming 5 stars. The next book that I read this month was my classic of the month, which was this book, The Beauty and the Beast, by Gabrielle Suzanne Bardot de Villeneuve. For those of you who love the classic Disney film Beauty and the Beast, this is where it all began. Disney adapted this book to make that film. Disney definitely fluffed it up because, you know, Disney fluffs things up and makes them all nice and sweet compared to the original. I thought the plot was okay. My biggest issue with this book was the writing style. This was incredibly hard for me to read. Thee, thy, thou, and thou are all written many times in this book. I'm just not a fan of that type of writing. Every sentence you're trying to mentally translate it in your mind. I don't like that because then that makes me feel like I'm working for the book. I thought the plot was good. I thought the writing style was hard to read. I split the difference and gave it 3 stars. The next book that I read was my Brandon Sanderson Cosmere Timeline book of the month, The White Sand series. This is an adult fantasy. It is a graphic novel, which is just a nice fancy schmancy modern way of saying it is a comic book. It's a very short book too, so there's not a lot I can say. We're following this main character guy who is trying his best to move up the ranks, basically. I was a little bit nervous because I don't read graphic/comic books, graphic novels, comic books. I don't read them. So I decided to give it a go physically reading it, but it wasn't working for me. So I switched over to the graphic audio version and it was done really well. So yeah, to begin with, I thought it was a bit of a slow start, but usually Brandon Sanderson's books are, but the way that it ended was so good, and I cannot wait to read volume number 2. There are 3 volumes in this series, so I'm really excited. Are we surprised? 5 stars. The final book that I read this month was a buddy read that I did. For those of you who love when I do my mum and me stuff, Mum and Me did a buddy read this month with The Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo, who is an amazing author. This is a YA culinary fiction. Now, for those of you who don't know what culinary fiction is a fictional book that's main theme revolves around food and cooking. We're following this woman on the cover. His name is Amani. Amani has lived a tough life. She is a young mother. She has a very young child and she is still in high school. At her school, they have brought about a culinary arts program where part of the program is to learn to become a professional chef, and the other part of the program is the opportunity to travel over to Spain where they can do some apprenticeships before the end of the year, but the whole class cannot go over to Spain unless they raise the money for it. So will they be able to raise the money to get over to Spain becomes the question for the majority of the book. This was a lot of fun and I really appreciated it. One thing that I really felt that Elizabeth Acevedo could have improved upon would have been to add more culinary elements. There are quite a lot in here, don't get me wrong, but I just wish it was even more. But I did still love this book anyway, and I gave this book 4 stars. So, that is it. Those are the books that I've read this month, a total of 12, which is pretty exciting. How did your reading month go? Let me know in the comments below. But that is where I am going to leave it, letting you guys go with peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'll see you again soon. Mwah! Thank you so much for watching, and happy reading!